We're counting down the 10 most underrated sailboats that older men are quietly choosing for their own adventures. These are not the biggest, flashiest, or fastest yachts. Each one earned its place here for comfort and trust, and the kind of bulletproof strength you only appreciate after decades on the water. From small, affordable options with legendary offshore pedigrees to heavy classics built when quality mattered most, this list reveals boats dismissed as too slow, old-fashioned, or not exciting enough, yet now prized for their gentle motion, forgiving designs, and realistic upkeep for sailors over 60. Which forgotten hull became the ultimate safe haven for experienced hands, and why are so many rediscovered by senior cruisers today? Let's begin the countdown, starting with number 10. Contessa 32 takes the 10th spot for a reason. Designed by David Sadler in 1970, this 32-foot sloop has quietly earned a reputation as the small boat that refuses to quit. Its full-length fin keel and skeg-mounted rudder give it a steadiness most sailors only dream about, especially when you are alone at the helm. With a displacement-to-length ratio just over 300, these boats move through waves like a freight train on rails. The hull is thick, Lloyd certified, and the ballast is nearly half the total weight, so you feel planted, not tossed. Dozens of men in their 60s have crossed the Atlantic in these boats, some single-handed, some with nothing but a tiller and a wind vane. The legendary Fastnet race in 1979 brought that Contessa 32 named Ascent finish when much larger boats turned back. Used examples run from $25,000 to $40,000, making true offshore pedigree accessible. You do not get a palace below decks, but every inch is built to last. For an older sailor who wants to trust the boat as much as himself, this is where bulletproof starts. Albin Vega 27 sits at number 9 for a reason. When it launched in 1969, most buyers shrugged. Too narrow, too plain, not enough sail to excite the racing crowd. But for men in their 60s, those so-called flaws are now its greatest strengths. The Vega's sail area to displacement ratio is around 14, modest. That means the sheet loads stay light even in a rising breeze. The beam is just over 8 feet, helping the boat slice through chop rather than bounce over it. Everything about the rig is simple: factory roller reefing for the main, a small head sail, and all controls close at hand. You do not need to muscle anything, and you will not find yourself tangled in a web of lines or electronics. Used Vegas often list between $15,000 and $28,000 in the States, making them one of the most affordable ways to get a real offshore hull. Owners on the forums talk about how easy they are to maintain, no complicated systems, just basic honest gear. The cabin is tight, and you will not win any speed records. But the Vega is the kind of boat that lets you keep sailing without worrying about your back or your bank account. For men who want to sail simply and safely, it is hard to find a better companion. North Sea 27 sits at number 8, and it is proof that you do not need a big boat to feel safe when the weather turns ugly. Designed by Lyle Hess, this 27-footer is famous for its overbuilt hull, up to 22 layers of hand-laid fiberglass, and a keel cavity nearly 3/4 of an inch thick. The ballast is fully encapsulated, not bolted on, and the canoe stern sheds following seas instead of inviting trouble aboard. With 3,100 pounds of lead below and a displacement of over 8,000 pounds, the North Sea moves through rough water as if it were twice its size. Stories from owners pile up on forums. North Sea 27s rode out real gales and held course when larger, flashier boats faltered. There is no Coast Guard report for a single famous rescue, but the class record is clear: no hull failures at sea, and plenty of circumnavigations logged by sailors well into their 70s. Used prices range from $30,000 to $55,000, and while the cabin is tight, you trade space for a sense of security that is hard to match. For men who want a boat small enough to handle alone, but strong enough to take a beating, this is where confidence in a storm begins. Westsail 32 lands at number 7 for a reason older sailors know by heart. This is not a boat that wins races or turns heads at the dock. Instead, it is a floating home, with a wide beam of 11 feet and a hull that carries 7,000 pounds of ballast deep below the waterline. That weight lets her settle into the sea, not fight it. The capsize ratio is 1.62, which means she resists rolling in a blow. For men over 60, that translates to fewer bruises and easier sleep, even when the wind moans through the rigging. The interior is where the Westsail 32 truly shines. Step below, and you find a space that feels more like a cabin in the woods than a fiberglass shell. There is enough headroom to stand tall, a galley big enough for real meals, and settees that welcome tired backs. One couple, both retired teachers, spent 20 years living aboard, refitting as their needs changed. Handholds were added, the galley was tweaked, and companionway steps were rebuilt for aging knees. They called it their traveling cottage and never looked back. This is settled, quiet living, a true comfort. Some call the Westsail slow. That is true. But what she lacks in speed, she returns tenfold in comfort and forgiveness. For older sailors, it is the difference between enduring a passage and enjoying it. This boat lets you wake up to a gentle rock, pour a cup of coffee, and remember why you came to sea in the first place. Cape Dory. 36 holds the 6th spot for a reason older sailors respect. It is a blue-collar cruiser with a global resume. Designed by Carl Alberg and launched in 1978, this boat was not built for the yacht club crowd. It was built to cross oceans, and the records prove it. Logs from solo circumnavigators fill owner forums, men in their 60s and 70s who quietly sailed these boats around the world, sometimes twice, with nothing but a wind vane and a pile of charts. The hull is solid, 1 inch of fiberglass below the waterline, with bronze through hulls and heavy deck hardware that shrugs off decades of salt and sun. Systems are simple and easy to repair, even at anchor in a far-off port. At 36 feet, the Cape Dory is big enough for real comfort. A roomy saloon, a deep cockpit with supportive coamings, and a galley that actually works underway, yet still manageable for a single hand. Used prices range from $45,000 to $75,000 depending on upgrades. Most owners will want to refit the tankage for serious voyaging, but the bones are right. There is a quiet dignity to this boat. It is not flashy, but it feels like home, a place where you can trust the hull, trust the systems, and trust yourself. For men over 60 who dream of one more big adventure, this is the boat that makes it possible. Catalina 38 stands at number 5, a boat born out of contradiction. Launched in 1978, it carried the Sparkman and Stevens pedigree, a name that meant something to anyone who had ever trimmed a sail for speed. But the Catalina 38's deep fin keel, nearly 7 feet of draft, and racy lines did not fit the mood of late 70s America. High interest rates and shrinking wallets meant buyers wanted shallow, easy boats for family weekends, not a racer with blue water ambitions. Catalina's ads boasted Congressional Cup victories and windward performance, yet most sailors just walked on by, drawn to the friendlier, shallower models in the lineup. Yet hidden beneath the showroom dust, the Catalina 38 offered a kind of honesty rare for its time. The hull, stretching just over 38 feet, held 6,850 pounds of ballast, enough to keep her upright and forgiving, even when the wind pipes up. The design's stiffness means she tracks upwind like she's on rails, a trait that becomes more valuable with every passing year and every ache in the knees. Surveyors still praise the robust build, with systems that are simple to repair and decks that invite real work, not just lounging. Today, the Catalina 38 is quietly enjoying a second life. Owners are refitting these boats for comfort, upgrading tankage, swapping aging engines for reliable diesels, adding handholds and electric winches. There is a growing owner community sharing diagrams, refit stories, and advice on making the Catalina 38 truly senior-friendly. One surveyor summed it up best. If you want a boat that rewards a careful refit with real performance and lasting value, this is it. For men over 60, it is the rare boat that forgives mistakes, rewards experience, and still has room to surprise. Pearson 365 claims the 4th spot for a reason that every sailor with a few decades under his belt will understand the moment he settles into the cockpit. This is not a boat that tries to impress with flash or speed. Instead, it offers something far more valuable for men who plan to spend real time at the helm. A cockpit built for long, comfortable watches even when the miles start to add up. Comfort. Owners talk about the deep, sheltering cockpit, a space that feels more like a secure armchair than a plastic bench. The coamings rise high enough to support your back, letting you lean in and relax, not perch and brace. The seat length stretches out to over 6 feet, so you can actually lay back for a nap or stretch out stiff legs. Everything about the layout is built for fatigue-free sailing. The wheel is right at hand, winches are close enough to reach without standing, and there is no awkward twisting or reaching for lines. After a few hours, you notice the difference, not just in your legs or back, but in your mood. The motion is gentle, the helm is steady, and the cockpit keeps you sheltered from spray and wind. Cockpit. One owner in his 70s put it simply, "I have done overnight passages in worse boats, and I always paid for it the next day. In the Pearson, I can do a full watch, step below, and still feel like myself." Used examples run from $35,000 to $65,000, and most have already seen thoughtful upgrades, grab rails, electric winches, even custom cushions for aging hips. For men looking to sail longer and arrive rested, this is the cockpit that quietly gets it right. Rested. Tartan 34C earns its place near the top by doing something few boats manage. It blends the comfort of a much larger cruiser with the nimbleness of a smaller sloop, all in a package that is easy on aging knees and shoulders. The real secret is in the details. Primary winches sit just 32 inches from the helm, close enough that a man in his 60s can trim sails from a seated position, never needing to clamber across the cockpit. The step up from cabin sole to deck is a forgiving 10 inches with grab rails exactly where you want them. For older sailors, those numbers are not trivia. They are the difference between enjoying a long day on the water and dreading every tack. Owner surveys and marine ergonomists have measured it. The Tartan 34C saves hundreds of unnecessary steps over a weekend sail compared to flashier, modern cruisers. One owner, now 71, demonstrates reefing solo. He never leaves his seat, just 2 moves from wheel to winch, and the job is done in under 2 minutes. All lines are led aft, and with a modest sail plan, there is no need to muscle anything. Even the companionway is built with a gentle rise, so you are not risking a misstep in a swell. The result is simple, predictable work at sea. Used examples run from $30,000 to $55,000, good value for a boat that lets you keep sailing without feeling punished for it. While the Tartan 34C does not have the sheer mass or bulletproof hull of the top 2 on this list, it finds a sweet spot, enough stability for real offshore work and light enough to handle with confidence. For men who want to keep their independence afloat, it is a boat that respects both your experience and your limits. Island Packet 35 stands just shy of the top spot, and for good reason. This is a boat that feels like a fortress at sea, 18,000 pounds of displacement, a full-length keel, and a hull bottom laid up with solid fiberglass thicker than your wrist. Surveyors often say it is rare to find hidden damage or soft spots on these hulls, even after decades afloat. That is not luck. It is the result of a boat built for the long haul, not the showroom floor. What sets the Island Packet 35 apart is not just brute strength, it is the sense of calm that comes from knowing the boat will take care of you even when things get rough. Owners often call the hull vault-like, a word you do not hear tossed around lightly in the sailing world. Below the waterline, there is no core to rot, and no thin spots to worry about. The deck is cored for stiffness, but the critical areas, chain plates, mast step, and hull deck joint are all overbuilt and easy to inspect. That means fewer surprises on survey day and fewer headaches down the line. There is another layer of security here, one that goes beyond fiberglass. The Island Packet owner community is legendary for its support. There is a thriving parts co-op, active forums, and a deep pool of shared wisdom. Need a rare fitting or advice on a refit? Chances are someone has the answer or a spare part in their garage. That network turns what could be a lonely maintenance job into a shared project, and it stretches the life of these boats far beyond what most designers ever imagined. Used Island Packet 35s typically sell for $70,000 to $95,000. That is not pocket change, but it buys a kind of confidence you cannot measure on a spec sheet. For men over 60 who want a boat that shrugs off the years, forgives mistakes, and comes with a built-in safety net of fellow sailors, the Island Packet 35 is as close to a sure thing as you will find. This is what structural security looks like when it is done right. Tayana 37 stands at the top of this list for good reason. Born from the drawing board of Robert Perry in the mid-1970s, the Tayana 37 quickly became the archetype of what a blue water cruiser should be: heavy, forgiving, and built to cross oceans rather than win races. More than 1,000 hulls were launched, and this boat has quietly circled the globe more times than most people realize. The displacement-to-length ratio sits at a steady 340, which means the motion is gentle even when the weather turns sour. That is the kind of comfort that matters most when you're 60 and your knees have seen better days. The full keel tracks straight, taking the sting out of confused seas and reducing the need for constant corrections at the helm. Owners talk about the Tayana's ability to hold a course for hours with just a wind vane or a modest autopilot. The hull is solid fiberglass, no quarter rot, no thin spots to worry about. Many boats have been refitted 2 or 3 times over, with owner forums documenting every step, new tanks, fresh wiring, upgraded rigging. There is a deep, active network of Tayana owners sharing advice, spare parts, and even hands-on help for projects big and small. This is about safe, sensible support at every stage. Used Tayana 37s typically list between $55,000 and $90,000, depending on condition and upgrades. That price buys more than just a hull. It buys access to a community and a blueprint for safe, comfortable cruising well into retirement. The interior is warm and inviting, with enough woodwork to feel like a home and enough space to move without bumping into sharp corners. The galley is tucked deep for safety, and the berths are generous, designed for real rest on passage. One owner, now 73, described sailing his Tayana from California to New Zealand. He said the boat felt like an old leather jacket, broken in, trustworthy, and always ready for another mile. That is the truth of the Tayana 37. It forgives mistakes, rewards patience, and lets you keep sailing long after faster, flashier boats have faded from memory. For men over 60 who want to keep chasing the horizon, this is the boat that makes it possible. Across all 10 of these forgotten boats, one truth emerges. True comfort and confidence at sea are not about modern trends. They are about proven, forgiving design. These hulls offer stability, ease, and quiet strength, qualities that only become more valuable with time. For older sailors, the right boat is not the flashiest. It is the one that lets you keep chasing freedom. Which would you trust for your next adventure?